like to sit up there and say something that I've never said about an NFL team before. I mean, Atlanta Falcons might be the dumbest team that I've witnessed in the modern.
That was a misclick.
Thank you, Stephen A, for the intro today. We really appreciate that. We agree. The Atlanta Falcons are the dumbest NFL franchise. How's it going, everybody? Welcome in. It's Dylan and Ross Save Sports. You got myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola, Dylan Sanders, at Dilly Sanders on Twitter. Of course, you can follow Full Press Radio, Full Press coverage over at Full Press Radio. Appreciate you very much for joining us here on today's episode. We got a lot to talk through, and we got a fun mock draft for you for Mock Draft Monday. It's going to be a very, I'll call it an eclectic mock draft. Dylan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Ross. I'm doing good.
Glad to hear it, my friend. Glad to hear it. We're going to talk through some of the things that are going on across free agency. The NFL still has not announced the salary cap at this time. Perhaps that happens at some point during the show. That would be great. But otherwise, still some moves being made, still some rumors happening. Tomorrow is, of course, the deadline in the NFL to apply the franchise tag. We had the most boring slam dunk contest ever. Somehow it still continues to get worse in the NBA. So we'll talk about All-Star Weekend as well from over, of course, the weekend. Dylan, before we get started, as always, we like to talk about what it is that are our favorite things from Twitter for the day. So why don't you start us off?
Why don't you start us off, Ross? You were so ready to get into it.
Happily start us off. My favorite thing from Twitter today was the CEO of Papa John's making an appearance on OAN, One American News. Just incredible and incredulous all at the same time. Him talking about spending and doing a lot of work over the last 20 months to get this N-word out of his vocabulary. Oh my goodness. What an incredible sentence. An incredible sentence. I heard that, I watched that, and I just laughed and laughed and laughed because it's so absurd, that idea. 20 months to try to get this N-word out of my vocabulary and my dictionary, he also went on to say. Really, really incredible stuff. And I can do nothing but appreciate the humor and all that.
He is just the worst.
The absolute worst. The absolute worst. The absolute worst. Oh, what an incredible sentence. And one that I will find many, many different reasons to utter throughout the rest of my lifetime for completely harmless words that start with the letter N. Completely harmless. Whenever somebody's like, hey, do you have a nickel? I'll be like, I have spent the last 20 months trying to remove this N-word from my vocabulary. I cannot wait.
And Ross, to celebrate International Women's Day, my favorite, no, it's not going to be what you think it is. It's not what you think it is. I sent you a tweet to a video I would like you to share.
Sure.
Reliving one of my favorite bits from Billy on the Street to celebrate National Women's Day.
Absolutely love Billy on the Street. Oh my goodness. All right, here, hold on 1 second. Just gonna get this all set up. We 100,000% have the express written consent of Billy Eichner to share this work.
Yep.
100%. Yep. Nobody ask him. Just take our word for it. All right, here we go. Do you have any preface, or you want me to just go ahead and
just play it? Just play it.
Oh, you know what? I got to do, I think, real quick. Sorry, I forgot to do sound.
Have you seen this clip?
I'm gonna need that. I'm sure I have. I've seen all of these. It's not jumping out which one it is just yet, but I'm very excited. All right, here we go.
Miss, for $1, name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yeah.
Who?
Name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yes. The yoga bag. Name a woman.
Sorry.
No, name a woman.
Name a woman?
Yes, go.
Any?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yes.
This is so hard.
Name a woman. Name a woman. Name a woman. No.
Oh man, that video is so good because it's so real. Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't think people understand how hard it is to have someone just standing in your face, screaming at you to answer a question
With a camera in front of you.
with camera, microphone. Like, you're just walking down New York City. You're just walking down New York
You
Street,
just got done with
like
yoga
minding your own
class.
business, right? Like, and then you ask this mad general question that has literally billions of possible answers.
You could have said my mother.
100%. You could have named yourself, but you don't think about that in the moment because someone is standing with a camera and a microphone screaming at you. And oh, by the way, it's Billy Eichner, one of the like most legendary screamers in all of Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just in terms of hit. Oh my goodness. Like, that's rough. That's hard.
It's difficult, Ross.
It's very hard to do. I can't wait for us to be out of this pandemic so that you can do this to people on LSU's campus live on the show.
I've been wanting to do it for forever, Ross. I've been wanting to do it for so long. We will eventually have the capabilities.
All you need is just to be able to go outside. That's all.
I know.
And to be
I
able to
know.
approach people. That's all we really need.
I know, Ross. Eventually, I will have the capabilities to do that, hopefully.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
I still haven't been on LSU's campus for a class. So I've spent one day on LSU's campus, and it was to film a project.
Yeah. Oh, geez. That's a great moment. Happy International Women's Day to everyone, especially all the women. All the hard work, everything that everybody's doing. Always want to make sure that we shout that out. Dylan has been a big proponent of taking a moment, any chance that he gets, to remind people to respect women. So I feel like this is a pretty good time to do so again, Dylan, if you'd like.
Yes. Hey guys. Hey. Listen. All right, guys. Let's take a second here, man. All right, let's go. Just me and the dudes here. All right. Just me and the dudes here. I'm gonna turn Ross's volume all the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Ross, you just shook your head and said, they can't hear you. Hey, dudes, listen, it's just me and the guys here. It's just me and the dudes here. Listen, why don't we respect women, all right? That's it. That's all I have to say.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Hey. I hope the talk went well. Stop being dicks. It's very simple. So here's another fun thing that we wanted to make sure that we talk through today before we jump into like main topics and stuff like that. Obviously we have a lot going on with NFL free agency and all, but did you by any chance take a moment to partake in the NBA All-Star game activities, right? Including the slam dunk contest, skills competition, all that?
Yes, my performance of the day actually comes from the night before that, Ross.
Great.
It was the Bleacher Report had their All-Star Game festivities, Ross.
Uh-huh.
It was the Quavo and Jack Harlow against Lil Baby and 2 Chainz.
Yes.
And they had a bunch of YouTubers play a game of knockout or blackout, whatever you call it, for $100,000. Shout out to Bandy Buckets on YouTube. Jenna, she went out there and absolutely dominated the competition.
Nice.
Didn't lose a single life and beat out everybody. I think she missed one shot the entire time.
Nice.
Just dominated everybody. But my performance of the day, of the weekend, goes to Quavo, Ross. In a game to 21, a 2-on-2 game to 21, Quavo finished with 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks.
Oh my goodness.
leading him and Jack Harlow to beat Lil Baby and 2 Chainz 21-7.
Yikes. Not even close.
Lil Baby might be the worst basketball player I've ever seen.
Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Given 5 possessions.
I could score
on Lil Baby.
I could score on Lil Baby 6 times in 5 possessions. Ross, have you seen Lil Baby? Did you see the video of Lil Baby attempting a free throw?
I did.
You did see it?
I did. Yeah,
it was atrocious.
I saw a couple of Lil Baby clips, and they were all hysterical.
He's so bad.
Yeah, not great.
Did you see Jack Harlow teaching him how to stretch?
No, I didn't see that.
Yes, he was teaching him how to stretch.
Oh my goodness.
Insane.
I
Just
love it.
insanity, Ross.
Yeah. It sounded like it. I mean, it was a very entertaining weekend. I don't really have a performance of the weekend for the most part. It wasn't a huge weekend. I might say Dylan Cruz just for being Dylan Cruz. For LSU. Oh, you know what? Actually, no, it's Airlia. It's always going to be Airlia. Leah Andrews of LSU softball, who's been absolutely incredible so far this season. Every day, I feel like every time that team plays, there's an Airlia highlight somewhere. Whether she's, hitting a triple to win the game, RBI triple to win the game, or she's diving to make a diving save in center field, or she's hitting an inside the park home run. She's been awesome. Happy International Women's Day to Airlia. That's what I'll say.
Do you want a fun fact, Ross? Fun baseball
yes, please.
fact?
Yeah.
Hunter Pence, Lou Whitaker, and Hack Wilson are all tied for 244th place in all-time home runs, Ross, with 244 home runs.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
I enjoy symmetry. I like chaos, but I also enjoy symmetry.
Bill Phillips is 1,130th place all-time with 1,130 hits.
Wow.
John Thompson
This has happened way too much for me to believe that there's not a matrix.
John Thompson is 800th place in strikeouts with 800th. With 800.
Wow. That's amazing that that's happened that many times. I would not expect that. All right. So what else did you take away from the NBA's All-Star Weekend? We did have a slam dunk display, I guess you can call it.
If he would have kissed the rim,
yeah,
that would have been an all-time dunk, but he didn't.
Yeah, he short.
None of the dunks were bad per se, except for Cassius Stanley's second attempt.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I just think that the slam dunk contest is kind of done. I'm sorry. I don't. It doesn't carry the same excitement as like a home run derby. You mean home run derby you can do over and over and over again, and it's never going to get old because people get hot, and all of a sudden it's like
because dingers, Ross.
Because dingers, dude. And it's like, you can get to this point where somebody's like rattling off home run after home run after home run, and like the excitement is still very much there, despite the fact that it's the same routine every year. It's just that like the creativity of these dunks just hasn't. I don't want to say that we've seen everything because obviously we haven't seen anything, but like the innovation isn't there as it used to be. And this all started when it became all about props and, blowing out candles on cupcakes and like all these other things and stuff, which like the candle cupcake thing was pretty dope. But just in terms of like some of the other things like Superman capes and props and costumes and all this stuff, like that's when it kind of got a little boring for me.
Didn't Victor Oladipo do the whole Black Panther? Wasn't that Victor Oladipo? I think so. I
don't know. They all run together now because of the just lack of innovation behind it. Because that's the thing is like the thing that made the slam dunk contest so incredible when like Vince Carter was going off and Dominique was going off and Jason Richardson and like these guys that were really, really electrifying to watch. It was about what they could do in terms of like the human ability that they had, or sometimes seemingly inhuman ability that they had. It was about ordinary people, quote unquote, doing extraordinary things. Like that was the thing that was really cool. But now it's just not there anymore. Like now we're just seeing the same like 6 dunks on rotation, but sometimes somebody wears a costume and sometimes somebody has a prop and sometimes somebody's jumping over something. Like Obi Toppin doing a one-handed windmill over a pair of human beings. Like that's pretty dope. Don't get me wrong. But like some of these other things, like the trying to kiss the rim thing, and then just the usual like between the legs dunk that is now kind of routine in these things. Like, it's just hard relative to what we see on a slam dunk contest on a daily basis. That's all. What'd you feel about the actual Steph Curry ended up winning the 3-point contest. We were hoping Zach LaVine would get it done, but unfortunately he wasn't able to. But Steph gets it done in like the ninth, the like very last moment.
Can I just say something, Ross?
Yeah.
I'll share this, how unlucky I was. My internet went out as Steph got to the last rack.
Oh man, that stinks.
And then, Ross, it buffered again as what's his name? As Anthony Simons went to go kiss the rim.
Ugh.
It was terrible, terrible luck.
So we saw Domantas Sabonis win the skills challenge. We saw Steph Curry win the 3-point contest, and then we saw Simons win the slam dunk contest. And then Giannis from Team LeBron took home the MVP award because he went 16 for 16 for 35 points, an All-Star game record, and the first time that's been done with over 10 shots and somebody finishes perfect. Pretty incredible. We saw 9 different lead changes on the way to a Team LeBron 170 to 150 win. So pretty impressive performance by Giannis. Despite, I mean, like we know how this goes, right? Like we understand how the All-Star game works. Like you're not really going to see a lot of people completely D up or anything like that. Like it's going to be a little bit different. But the fact that he took almost a shot a minute because he played 19 minutes and 12 seconds in this game and then still went 100%. You also saw Steph Curry put down 28 points, Damian Lillard with 32. You had Jaylen Brown with 22, and LeBron scoring only 4. Didn't take a lot of shots in the game. We ended up seeing Zion Williamson end up getting a start in this one. He had 10 points, 55.6% field goal percentage, a little low for his usual, but top scorers over with Team Durant were Bradley Beal, 26, Kyrie Irving, 24, James Harden, and Jason Tatum both with 21. And then the only double for Team LeBron was Kyrie Irving, who had 12 assists in addition to his 24 points. Chris Paul, though, 16 assists in this one. Not a lot of rebounding going on in this game, as you would imagine, with a score of 170 to 150.
How about I really wish they would have made it clear that both teams charities were getting donations, because it looked like for a while there that Team Durant was just going to completely let down. not work for it at all. I got to him. I was like, should Team LeBron just let him have a quarter just to get some money for the other squad? Right.
Oh man.
But
yeah,
every team, each team at least got 500,000. Yeah. Steph is just so much fun to watch, dude.
Yeah, man, he's a blast. I'm so glad he's healthy again and he's back on the court. The NBA is better with Steph Curry in it.
Yeah, it's and I cannot wait for Clay to get back too.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm so excited, and he's gonna. I mean, all the hard work that guy's having to do to get back, like pretty incredible stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited for him to get back on the court as well. It's gonna be good stuff. So now we get the next half of the NBA schedule. That ends up when trying to see when we resume play, but have a little bit of time for certain before we end up diving right back into game action. But we're back at it on the 10th. So in just a couple of days here, it'll be Washington traveling to take on the Memphis Grizzlies and San Antonio traveling to take on the Dallas Mavericks. And then, of course, as we continue to move forward, we'll get closer and closer to the trade deadline. We'll see if there are any moves that end up happening, but we're not entirely sure that anything's going to happen. Just considering what the trade deadline has been over, I guess you could even say historically over the last few years. It's been mostly kind of quiet and disappointing with all of the buildup around it. And then entering the second half of the season, we'll see it looks like the Utah Jazz, number 1 in the power rankings presently, the Jets, number 2. So, the Nets, number 2. The Jets wish they could be number 2 aside from anything but the NFL draft. But the Nets, of course, added a big piece. They added another piece to their team, as we expected. Blake Griffin heading to the Nets. He'll wear number 2, and he's got, I think it's like a $1.3 million deal through the rest of the season. How are you feeling about Blake Griffin joining the ranks over with the Brooklyn Nets?
He is good still, but he's not like that level. What this trade has really brought to my attention once again is how much I hate Lakers fans. Because now they're like, oh man, Brooklyn going to buy a championship. Yeah,
it's interesting, right, to see sort of the double standard there. And stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, like I couldn't care less about super teams. I think super teams are fun. It's great to see good players playing together, all this other stuff, and they don't always win, so it doesn't always matter. But to ignore when your favorite team is a super team because somebody else's team is becoming a super team is a little revisionist history.
Also, one of the big differences, Ross, is because the Nets traded all of their young guys for James Harden, Ross, and the Lakers would never trade 3 young stars and maybe a couple first-round picks for a player, Ross. They would never do that in order to win it. They wouldn't betray their past to do that, Ross.
Right. No, they would only do that for a Ruffles chip salesman. But never for a basketball player. That's for certain.
No. What if that Ruffles chip salesman is a good basketball player?
I mean, if it just happens to be the case, then it just happens to be the case. But that's not going to be their intent, I would say.
And everybody's like, oh, you're doing all this just to stop LeBron. It's just LeBron. LeBron's by himself. Oh, no, blah. All right, let's just ignore Anthony Davis, Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder.
Who?
Alex Caruso, the homie.
Who?
Taylor Horton Tucker.
I know Taylor.
Talon.
That's what I said. That's the joke.
No, the Lakers have signed a bunch of really good players for cheap.
Yeah.
And traded for a star in Anthony Davis.
And traded a young core. Remember, that was the whole thing. That was the phrase the entire time, right? The entire time. Oh, the Lakers' young core. They're going to trade their young core. Like, that was the whole thing.
To win a championship.
And it's like, yeah, of course, they should.
Yes,
they should.
That's how it works in basketball.
That's right. You trade unknown commodities for known commodities. Like, that's a business.
And listen, Lakers fans, there's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead, buy your championship. Build a good team. The whole point of the game is to build a good team. And if you do that, however you do that, you did it. But don't just go and act like the Nets aren't doing just exactly what y'all did.
Right.
Signing LeBron is equal to signing Kyrie and KD.
Yeah.
Trading for Anthony Davis is the same as trading for James Harden.
Right. And we saw the same thing. Like, we've seen something similar, let me say, with the Golden State Warriors. Now, the Golden State Warriors are a little bit more homegrown, right?
Yes,
Draymond,
except for
Steph
KD.
Curry. Yeah. Klay Thompson before KD got there. And then KD went there to get himself a ring, as opposed to help lift the Golden State Warriors over. So, but even still, that's building a super team, and there's nothing wrong with that. I still think that makes the NBA more exciting, right? If we had something equivalent to that in the NFL, I wouldn't be mad at that either. But, what we have, and I guess the closest thing that we probably have to that would be maybe the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Rams have worked on it. We saw it last year with the Tampa Bay Bucks. nothing wrong with it. It makes the game more exciting, and it makes the game more exciting for when they're playing, and it makes the game more exciting for when they get beat, because then you look at some of these other teams and say, hey, those are markets that have the ability to win despite X, Y, and Z. Like, there's nothing wrong with it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a weird thing to specifically, like I mentioned, like apply the revisionist history to say this doesn't apply to us, but it applies to them, even though they did the same model that we've used.
All of this to say, Lakers fans are delusional.
Can be delusional.
No, Ross, I will say I have not seen one Laker fan say the opposite.
I mean, Anthony Irwin. But he also, I mean, he's an analyst and everything, and so he sees a little bit different. I know we're wrong. Like Anthony, like we know Tony. Like he'll pick the Lakers every time, as well he should. But like I think there are folks that do look at it from a little bit more of a realistic lens.
Ross,
what they're doing, there's nothing wrong with that.
Let me have my hyperbole. Every single Lakers fan is delusional.
One of those Dylan Sanders blanket statements for you.
Yep. Every single one. I've interacted with
Dylan's been working for 20 years to get, 20 months to get any non-hyperbolized thoughts out of his vocabulary.
Yep.
I love it.
Been working 20 months to get this L word out of my vocabulary, and the L word is Laker.
Well, 20 months of hard work down the drain right there, as you just used it. Yikes. It's tough. It's hard. It's a long road, but you'll get there. What won't be a long road, though, is this break. We're going to jump to a break real quick. When we come back, we're going to take a look a little bit at some of the NFL free agency moves. We get closer and closer to NFL free agency. A lot of rumors circulating around about our favorite team, but also a lot more going on around the NFL as well. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll get to our in terms of our mock draft Monday. It's going to be more of a March Madness Monday, I think, is a better way to describe what we're going to do today. We have a pretty eclectic look at some popular brands across the, I guess I'll say, world. So to be a very busy second half of the show. Don't miss it. We'll be back here in just a moment. Dylan Ross, Day Sports, Full Press Coverage, Full Press Radio Network. All right. Audio break.
First things first, I'm the realist.
Okay, first things first, I'm the realist. That's one.
Yeah.
What's another one that comes to mind for you? First things first, rest in peace, Uncle Phil, obviously.
For real.
First things first, I can't say it, or can I? Yeah, Papa freaks all the honeys. Yeah, I could say that. So there's that. That's what if I would have just said it out loud and be like, nope, can't say that, and then just move forward. What's another one? First things first, there's a Slum Village lyric that I can't say. There's a Protect Your Neck lyric from Wu-Tang. I just re-listened to Into the Wu, by the way. There's not, at no point is that album skippable.
Oh no, there's not a skip on that album.
Not a single one. We were talking about that not too long ago, weren't we, on Twitter, about like the greatest like 4-song stretches over the course of albums and everything. And in the case of J. Cole, worst 4-song stretches, those are always great. But like Abbey Road, Ariana's album had a good one. Thank you next. Especially if you count going back to the top of the album too. Into the Woo is definitely one of those. Mm-hmm. Tyler's got a couple of really good 4-song stretches too, like really, really strong ones.
Yes.
Kanye's got a couple with College Dropout and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. Eminem doesn't have any.
First things first, I'll eat your brains.
Oh yes, of course.
Teeth and chains.
How could I forget on International Women's Day? I forget about Nicki Minaj. I hate myself.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I can rap that verse completely. Well, not completely.
From Monster? Not completely. Please, not completely. We're gonna have to appoint 20 months to help you out if you were to rap that.
Not completely.
Oh, that's oh man, that's so good.
Man,
Yeah, there's some really good ones.
Pull up in the Masa automobile gangster with a baby that came from Sri Lanka. Yeah, man, that's on Coca-Cola Wonka. You could be the queen for what's the queen for. Okay, first day, bro, I'll eat you, man. Then I'm sorry I could go teeth you, man. Because that's what I'm a monster do. That's the monster do. Monster Mississippi Hill, that's a monster show. Young Money is the roster and the monster crew.
Oh,
And I'm all up in the bank with the funny face. And if I think I ain't know this, come on, money ain't. Let me get this straight. Wait, I'm the rookie. Yeah, my money's so tall that my mommy's gonna climb out into the Middle Eastern climate.
We have to come back.
When I signed.
All right, we have to come back. Here we go.
But really, I don't give a F.
All right, everybody. We are back. Dylan and Ross.
Just killed another career. It's a mild day. Besides me, they can't stand besides me. I think me, you and Andrew, but not Friday.
Oh, my cheeks hurt so much. Oh my goodness. We got to talking about the lyric First Things First and what massive amount of different song lyrics come to mind. And Dylan just did the entire Nicki Minaj. Well, not the entire, right? We were very clear about it not being the entire, but doing the appropriate portions of Nicki Minaj's Monsterverse. That was hysterical. Oh, my cheeks hurt. Oh my goodness. Welcome in for the second half hour of today's show. Dylan Rossi Sports here at Full Press Coverage, Full Press Radio Network. Let's do a shout out for people to go and follow. Go and follow Kennedy Landry. For sure. Kennedy Landry, you'll follow at Ken, Kenn Landry on Twitter. Who else? Go follow Kylie Ray, who we absolutely love, at Kylie R. Wang on Twitter. And then Dylan, one more. Who else?
Caroline Fenton. Baseball.
Yes.
At Caroline
Fenton. Caroline Fenton won.
Yes. yes.
Fantastic.
Ross.
Yeah.
Speaking of Caroline Fenton, I don't think we've ever showed this clip on our show, but it's really funny, and I think you should. This is from she did it's in Baseball Tonight Live, and it's a clip that I find really, really funny. So we should show it.
But I have a very, very important trivia question for all three of you. So the Marlins are the #1 team in the National League East. I want the three of you to each name one current Miami Marlin.
Sterling Sharp.
God, dude, no, you can't take that.
I was gonna say Sterling Sharp. I texted him yesterday.
I was gonna say Sterling Sharp.
He's the only guy on the team. He's the only person I care about.
Hey, Clinton, I was gonna say Sterling Sharp because on our conference call, that's the only name anybody brought up. I'm out. I tap out. Give us another one.
Shouts to Sterling. Hope
Jonathan VR, that's another one.
That is just a gosh darn shame. They are the #1 team in the National League East, and you can't even name one more player.
Sterling Sharp. Let the record
played
show.
like no games. That's why they're the #1 team.
All right, well, shout out to Sterling.
That's a good clip, Ross. And I gotta be real. I don't know if I could name another Miami Marlin right now. You're muted. You're muted, Ross. Ross, you're muted.
Wasn't Sixto Sanchez a Marlin?
Yes.
That's it for me. That is 1,000% it for me.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably about it.
In terms of like current Marlins that played, that's the best I can give you. It's a really, really good segment. I like that. That's fun.
Yep.
Oh man, my cheeks are still absolutely killing me. Jeez, from laughing so hard during that break. Okay. Let's get to some free agency news. We have a couple of different pieces of news all around. Again, the NFL salary cap still not released. We are now officially exactly 1 week away from when teams and players can begin to agree to contracts in principle. 1 week and 2 days away from when pen can go to paper. So, Dylan, a couple pieces of information that have come out so far today. The Raiders are releasing safety Lamarcus Joyner after 2 seasons with the team. This is coming from Ian Rappaport. He was set to make $9.95 million in cap. This ends up freeing up $8.7 million for the Las Vegas Raiders. This felt like a very obvious move for the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Lamarcus Joyner has not been the strongest for them.
No, I would agree with you.
And there was somebody that cataloged all of the different signings that have backfired on the Raiders here recently. Of course, Tyrell Williams, who they ended up saying that they were going to release earlier on this season. We've talked about him before. He and Lamarcus Joyner, you cut the two of them, you're basically under the salary cap. They also moved on. I believe it was Trent Brown that they moved on from as well. And then Antonio Brown was another that was named in that group. Not from this season, of course, but just like not so great signings that the Raiders have kind of fallen for over time. Ryan Fitzpatrick, according to Ian Rappaport, the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, mentioned that he does indeed plan to play at 38 years old in 2021. Where do you see Ryan Fitzpatrick ending up? I have an idea for like the perfect landing spot for him, but I'm really curious about your thoughts on this one.
Oh, man.
You can say it if you want to.
Man, Ross. What can I say? Let's go with the Saints.
I knew it. I knew it. Look, there's a reality there, right? Like the Saints miss out on re-signing Jameis Winston. They want to bring somebody in free agency before they get to the draft to sort of be somebody that could potentially, I mean, they'll go to Taysom, but you want to have another guy there. They've got Trevor Siemian on the roster, but do you really want to roll into 2021 with Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, and then a rookie quarterback? Probably not. You probably want to get another veteran guy in there. Ryan Fitzpatrick would make a lot of sense. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick should go to Denver. I think that it ends up creating a situation for him, much like the situation that he was a part of in Miami, but maybe with a little bit more clear guidance in terms of it is going to be Drew Lock. You are our veteran mentor quarterback that can come in a pinch should you be needed due to injury or anything like that. We know Drew Lock got, hurt ribs and everything throughout the season last year. And so could we see a little bit of that? I would be interested to see him end up in Denver.
I'm going to be real, Ross. I'd rather Ryan Fitzpatrick be our starting quarterback next year than Taysom Hill.
Shots. Give the man an off season. You know what I'm saying? Like, give him an off season to figure it out, maybe.
Ross, he's had, 3 or 4 off seasons now to figure it out. And the man can't throw the football or hold on to it.
I guess it's true. He has been working, like during the offseason, he has worked primarily at quarterback, and then he got folded into the other stuff during the season. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll figure out. We'll see where Ryan Fitzpatrick ends up going, but definitely going to be pretty interesting. It seems that the NFL Network, they did a little segment on Dak Prescott. It seems that he is absolutely going to be the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys next season, which no surprise to us. I think we've considered that to be the truth all told, but a little bit more clarity there that either before the franchise tag deadline, which is tomorrow, they'll either figure it all out and then, make the decision about whether or not they're going to franchise tag him before free agency opens up, or if they're going to follow through with a tag and then get him set up before the July deadline to get an extension there. Either way, there will be some extension that's given to Dak Prescott to keep him in Dallas in 2021 and hopefully beyond as he continues to move forward. He's in line for a big extension. Could potentially become one of the, I'll say, top 2 highest paid quarterbacks. I don't think he'll exceed Patrick Mahomes' deal, but he could exceed Deshaun Watson. He could get up there into that conversation. How do you feel about the idea of Dak Prescott remaining that starting quarterback? Just seems to put more clarity on what we already expected, right?
Yeah, I've never thought anything else.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. Even all of the talk about, hey, you could tag and trade Deshaun Watson to the Seattle Seahawks and get Russell Wilson. It's like, why? When you've already why get older at the position? Like, as good as we know Russell Wilson is, why get older at the position? And you can't bank on trading for a guy that isn't demanding a trade, right? Like that's still something we've talked about here on the show before. That doesn't really put them in a position to go out there and like do something like that. We have former Broncos cornerback AJ Boye visiting the Raiders. That feels like that signing is just a foregone conclusion. If you consider the style of free agency signings that the Raiders tend to go for, which we discussed earlier. The Seahawks did decide to move on from Carlos Dunlap. They're releasing him $14 million in salary cap space saved there. It does feel like they could potentially bring him back on a cheaper deal, though, if they decide to do so.
Oh, this is weird.
What you got?
This is a quote from the Steelers.com official website, Ross.
Oh, okay.
About Chase Claypool. I don't know what the article was, but they were talking about Chase Claypool. Claypool didn't need very long to establish himself as a difference maker, as a receiver capable of making plays down the field, and he was the offense's primary deep threat throughout the season. If there was a negative, it was that it seemed as though Claypool's diva quotient increased consistently over the course of his rookie season.
Oh, no. It's too early, Chase.
Whether that turns into a problem or comes to be viewed in the future as growing pains, it will develop over time. What an odd quote to have on the team's official website.
Right. Hey, look, man, senior writers got to do their work, dude. Senior writers got to do their work. That's pretty big indignation, I think you could say.
Yeah.
Wide receivers with a diva quotient?
But you know what, Ross? I'm glad that there's no one like that in New Orleans.
Yeah. Speaking of New Orleans Saints looking to clear salary cap space. They might not just stick to doing it with all the restructures and cutting every single player on the roster, as a lot of national media may have you think. They also can save some money by extending both or either Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore. By extending them, they can drop their fifth-year option hits to a very low rate and then backload the contract, which is something that they do in New Orleans all the time. For instance, Alvin Kamara, $15 million APY. But what do we always say, Dylan? APY means nothing. First year of this deal only hit for $5 million for the New Orleans Saints. We could see something similar happening for both Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore. If you were the GM in this situation, Dylan, do you prioritize getting Ryan Ramczyk's extension done first or Marshawn Lattimore's?
Ramczyk any day of the week.
I think I agree. I still think of Ryan Ramczyk as probably the best player on the team. He's certainly one of the best at his position, and he can play left tackle as well. So, get the contract done now before you end up having to see him take extended snaps over on the opposite side and then have to pay him for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully you can get. Oh, go ahead.
I was say, did you see what the NFL update tweet earlier via Albert Breer? It's a list of players that have been floated in trade talks as teams work their cap situation. Have you seen this list of players, Ross?
I've seen it, but go ahead and read it over because it is very, very interesting. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about in that.
Stefan Gilmore, Brandon Brooks, Michael Brockers, Zach Ertz, Preston Smith, Kevin Zeitler, Andrew Norwell, Geno Atkins, David Njoku, Trent Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Quan Alexander, and LaMarcus Joyner.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of very interesting names there. We saw, of course, LaMarcus Joyner not get traded, but instead he got released today. So we saw the way that works. And that could be the fate for just about any of these players, right? If you don't find an adequate trade partner, you could see them hitting the open market. I think the only exception would be Quan Alexander, just because of the way that the injury sort of factors in. They could still move on from him, but it's not at all an easy process, as we've discussed here on the show before.
So that I wanted to ask you about this. That Quan Alexander trade came with a conditional 5th-round pick.
It was that the Saints gave up a conditional 5th-round pick. We still don't know, though.
But it was if the condition was if he meets his playing time requirement.
Right, which we still don't know at this point. We still don't know if he met the playing time requirement, if he met the snap requirement.
Ross, I gotta be real. I highly doubt he met. It would be hard to. What was his requirement? 5 snaps?
Well, I mean, okay, let's go see how many snaps he played. Let's go see how many snaps he played. Let's be fair. Because he did appear in a handful of games for the Saints, 5 total games. And then during that time, he played, 350 defensive snaps. So if that threshold is exactly 350, that would stink for New Orleans. But if it was anything above, and the percentage, by the way, is 34%, but that's looking over the course of the entire Oh, I'm sorry. He played 7 games for the Saints, not 5. My apologies.
Did he play 7 games?
Mm-hmm. He
That
appeared
was
in 7 games.
A lot more than I remembered.
Yeah.
But he looked
Yeah,
good.
he appeared in 7 games. He did. So, and he played quite a bit too, is the thing. So we'll see. Maybe he did hit that threshold. Maybe he didn't. If they didn't, then the Saints gave up literally nothing, right? Like they sent Kiko Alonso there. Kiko Alonso failed his physical upon arrival, which could potentially be what happens if the Saints were to trade Quan Alexander at this moment, right? A similar situation is what happened with Kiko Alonso, to where he could get somewhere and then fail his physical. But that would happen with no. I don't think Quan Alexander gets traded, because then you're moving $13.4 million in 2021 to a new team. And I don't think, and the injury complicates all of that. Like, I don't think that happens unless you're also sending away a draft pick or something like that to basically convince a team to take on that contract. Which would be very, very tough. And then, of course, if he fails that physical, then that means that he reverts back to injured reserve, like all these other things. So it's such a complicated situation. I kind of hope that the Saints just say, hey, would you be willing to take a pay cut? But it's going to be hard to talk somebody down from $13.4 million, right? Like when they're due that much and none of it is guaranteed. That's a really, really tough situation. So they could do, in injury situations where they move on from them and things like that, but just a convoluted process to go
Cut and reside, baby.
That's a really, really good way to go about it. If you can't get him to take the pay cut, then you can. I mean, that's the thing too, is like, if he doesn't want to take the pay cut, it doesn't make sense to not want to take the pay cut, because you would just be cut and re-signed anyway, or cut and signed somewhere else on a new deal anyway. So, it's got to be one or the other.
It's just
that
like,
might
take the pay cut and stay with the team you're currently on, right?
Right. That might be the reason why the trade talks are happening, is to say, we'll try to move you on your deal and get you somewhere else where you can make that money. But if that can't happen, then here's another option. We can do the pay cut.
Mm-hmm.
That is certainly an option. So lots of great stuff. Stefan Gilmore, I feel like he's somebody that we've been talking about potentially getting traded for basically 2 seasons now.
I remember when he was on the Bills.
Right. Yep. Brandon Brooks. Go ahead.
I was saying, then he moved to the Patriots and became the best cornerback in the NFL.
Yeah. Hey, he got to a Rip Liz system. Those help. And then you have some other standout names here, as you mentioned before. Michael Brockers is a really interesting one. The Rams could potentially move on from Michael Brockers as well, but obviously trading him first makes a lot of sense. I think he would have a pretty good deal. It's a pretty good market. It's just that there's such a there's such a well-populated defensive tackle market in the NFL this season that it might be tough to convince a team to trade for him. But he's such a good player that maybe a team is going to say, hey, we'll move for him so that we make sure that we get that player in particular. Like, he'll have that market, which makes a lot of sense. Emmanuel Sanders is a really tough one. I could see Emmanuel Sanders be one of those guys that is, that could be moved on from just based on salary, right? It doesn't even come down to the player or anything like that. It just comes down to like performance versus return on investment and all those other things. But Emmanuel Sanders essentially was your leading wide receiver, right? Leading wide receiver on the 2020 Saints team. But can the Saints hold on to him? Do the Saints want to continue to invest that cash into him? They can save, I think it's $4 million if they trade him or cut him. So I don't know. He's an interesting one to continue to watch and see exactly how it all unfolds. Anybody on this list that particularly stands out to you outside of the guys that we've already discussed?
No one necessarily, I would say.
Yeah. The only other one that I would bring up would probably be David Njoku. I'd be really interested to see him in a different system, especially if Stefanski brings in Kyle Rudolph. You might be able to then free up an opportunity to move on from David Njoku, and then to see him maybe end up in a system that fits him a little bit more. This is more of a system fit thing than anything else. I'd be curious to see where he ends up and what he looks like in a different environment.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be my big ones.
Yep. Oh, man. I'm ready for college basketball to get back.
Yeah. We have a lot. We have Selection Sunday coming up next weekend. But we have, all these tournaments and everything in between. We get the Big Ten tournament starting up in just a couple of days as well. So we have a lot. But we have our own kind of madness, March Madness, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we get into that, Ross, we have the new college football top 50. Well,
Ooh, interesting.
Top 25. Well, it's top 25, but they do the top 50, but it's typical top 25. And 5 of the top 7 teams are in the SEC.
Of course they are. Of course they are.
So you have Arkansas, Vandy, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, Mississippi, Miami, Florida, Louisville, TCU, and ECU to round out the top 10. And then LSU drops to 15 from 11 after losing their series to Oral Roberts. Who, let me just say, Oral Roberts, why do they have multiple pitchers in the bullpen that can live in the mid-90s? That doesn't make any sense to me. They're not an SEC school. That shouldn't happen. But whatever. Other teams, UCLA at 11, Boston College at 14, South Carolina at 17, Oregon State at 20, Texas at 25. And shout out to the 50th best team in the country, Ball State.
Shout out Ball State.
Yeah, so a round of applause for Balls. Ball Watch.
Ball Watch. Shout out Ball State.
Ball State Watch.
Absolutely love it.
All right. Do you want to go through real quick, Ross, this greatest bracket of all time, greatest product of all time bracket?
Yep,
we can go through the round of 64.
Yikes. All right. We got to start. Let's do it. Let's get it.
All right.
This might be a two-parter, right? Like today and tomorrow or something.
Yes. Or one round a day or something like that.
That's great. That's great.
All right. Let's go. Let's get through it. Greatest product of all time. Or we might just do. We might take the week, do half of round 64 today, and then the other half tomorrow.
Let's do that
and live it. All right. So let's start with the unsung heroes region, Ross.
Already.
At number one seed.
Do you want to share it?
Oh, I thought I was sharing it. My bad. The 1 seed versus the 16 seed, Ross. We have Microsoft Windows versus Post-it Note.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I'll tell you what. I think I have to vote for Post-it Notes because I have Post-it Notes. I have nothing Microsoft Windows. What do you think?
I don't think I can take the 16 seed upset here, Ross. Windows is very important to my daily life.
All right, Microsoft Windows it is. I tried to shoot my shot.
Listen, I love Post-it Notes, but they got a rough. I don't think they should have been looking at the other 16 seeds they have, they should not have been a 16 seed.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't have. I can already see a couple of seeds here that they could be swapped with, actually.
Yeah.
But all right, Microsoft Windows it is.
Number 8, Tupperware versus number 9 seed Salesforce CRM.
I gotta go with Tupperware.
Tupperware is Tupperware. We are both big proponents of Tupperware.
Yeah.
Number 5, Bic Lighter versus number 12, Tylenol.
Ooh, man. I don't know. I can't logic my way through that one.
I'm gonna go with a Bic Lighter.
Okay.
I think they're more useful.
All right.
Aspirin, Bayer Aspirin versus Dr. Bronner soap. I will go Aspirin for that. Then.
I gotta go Aspirin. That stuff literally saves lives.
Yep.
Which I guess soap does too, but not to the same extent.
Not specifically Dr. Bronner's soap. Number 6, an Intel semiconductor versus number 11 Velcro.
I gotta go with the semiconductor. As much respect as I have for Velcro and its like multifaceted nature, like I gotta go at Intel.
And listen, speaking of, I mean, this show would not be here without an Intel.
Right,
semiconductor.
exactly. Well, not anymore. Not anymore. At least not for me.
Well, at least this specifically episode, because I am running on an Intel laptop.
There you go. I'm on my M1, so I'm good if there's no Intel.
Number 3 duct tape versus number 14 Kleenex.
Duct tape. It fixes everything.
Does it? Does it fix everything, Ross?
Fixes everything.
Yeah,
literally couldn't get my computer to turn on. Put some duct tape on it. Started right up, brand new. No problems.
I don't believe that. Number 7 Band-Aid versus number 10 Cholula hot sauce. I'm going Cholula hot sauce, Ross.
Upset alert. Upset alert.
I'm going Cholula hot sauce, and especially because if there's ever a time I need a Band-Aid, we are always out of them.
But you know what you're never out of?
Cholula hot sauce.
Never.
I could go grab more bottles of Cholula hot sauce than I could Band-Aids, probably. Fine.
Probably. Probably. And I'll tell you what, like the other part of it too is like the connotation around both of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about something being a very temporary and not well thought out solution to a large problem. What do you call it? You call it a Band-Aid. But if it's something that's a really good idea or something's really great, what do you call it? It's fire. It's hot sauce. It's the sauce. Come on.
It's the sauce.
Everything about it. Everything about it.
All right, Ross. And now, number 2 Google Maps versus number 15 Bluetooth. I am asking for an upset here, Ross.
I am once again asking you for an upset.
I am once again asking you for an upset. I'm asking for Bluetooth to go over Google Maps because I do not like Google Maps. I had an Android for the longest time, and I used everything but Google Maps. I hate Google Maps. I don't like it.
Interesting. Google Maps is my go-to map because I think Apple Maps, I don't like it, and then Waze never knows what it's doing.
I like Waze.
And so, it does not know what it's doing in Los Angeles. I'm sorry.
Oh, I mean, might be
horrific here.
Might be an LA thing, but
yeah, it's horrific here. I've literally never, like, anytime I've ever used Waze, I've literally never been on time. I can't use Waze.
But like,
I was going to say, one of the things I was going to mention about Google Maps is because, like, I use Google Maps more than I use Bluetooth. I don't do a lot of Bluetooth stuff because battery and all that stuff. But Google Maps also kills batteries too.
I use AirPods.
Right. You use a lot of Bluetooth.
I use a lot of Bluetooth.
Mm-hmm.
I use speakers.
I
don't know.
Oh, actually, you know what? Daily, I do use a Bluetooth speaker. Now that I think about it, when I'm listening to shows and everything for Locked On and everything, I oftentimes
have you ever played with a controller on a PlayStation 4, Ross? You use Bluetooth.
Is that Bluetooth? There you go. All right. Well, there you go. It's got to be Bluetooth. I just simply use it more than I use Google Maps.
There are more alternatives to Google Maps than there are alternatives from Bluetooth.
Good point.
I'm going Bluetooth.
Good choice.
All right. And then the next one, the Legends region. Number one.
We got some good matchups on that one.
Number 1, Coca-Cola versus number 2, Game Boy.
Number 16, Game Boy?
Number 16, Game Boy, Ross.
Are we starting on this or are we just previewing it?
We don't have a lot of time, Ross. I guess we should just preview. I guess we should just leave it.
Yeah. Yes, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this one tomorrow. But we got through our first bracket, which back through for the rest of these starting tomorrow, and then just kind of take our time going through it all throughout the week.
Yep.
That'll be a lot of fun. Shout out Bluetooth over Google Maps. What an upset.
And I got to tell you, Ross, I've already seen an upset for the next episode that I'm going to pull for.
I already saw one too. I saw one right off the bat, actually.
Maybe we might be agreeing. We might be agreeing, Ross.
Oh, man. Well, Dylan, as always, such a pleasure. Anything else before we wrap up today?
Yes, I just wanted to say one thing.
And
it was that
I'd like to sit up there and say something that I've never said about an NFL team before. I mean, Atlanta Falcons might be the dumbest team that I've witnessed.
It's wisdom, absolute wisdom. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to today's episode of Dylan Ross City Sports. For Dylan Sanders, at Dilly Sanders on Twitter. I'm Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter. We'll be back with you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
First thing first, I'm the realest.